Thursday evening, Josh and I went on a date. And we went to the Vault and heard at the Indiana Memorial Union and heard a jazz quartet. You can get jazz music every Thursday night at the Vault. It's really spectacular. And the music was beautiful. We heard Thomas Marshall on the saxophone and Dave Stryker's guitar. And Dave Stryker's guitar, that's what I was really fascinated by. His music would rise above for a few moments before settling back into the rhythm of the group. But before long, I found myself watching the musicians more than listening to them. Their concentration, the sweat, the subtle nods to each of the musicians, the quick glances across the stage, the occasional smile when someone would land a particularly beautiful phrase. No one seemed disconnected from the others, yet no one disappeared into the others either. Each musician brought something uniquely their own. Each had a voice, each had a role, and somehow the music emerged from their attentiveness to one another, connected but not consumed. Then halfway through the set, they took a break, and my goodness, they needed it. For all the beauty and the joy of the music, there was also labor, focus, attention, the kind of a sustained attentiveness that eventually requires rest. And watching them, I found myself thinking about this week's lesson in the Gospel of Matthew. Even Jesus needed to get away. I've been reading a novel series, and I'm in the first book, and it's called The Lost Apothecary. And at some point, the main character finally discovers something important hidden away. The Lost Apothecary, actually. She finds this, uncovers it, and she's using her phone for everything. She's using her phone for the map and finding her place in the world. She's trying to navigate through darkness, so she needs her flashlight. She needs to take pictures, so she's using her camera. So she's relying on this one instrument, the phone. And then she realizes she's on 8%. So what struck me here in the story was she doesn't begin bargaining with the phone. 8% is 8%. So she begins making different decisions, different choices on how she's going to use her phone with the remaining charge. She's paying closer attention. She's conserving what remains. And I wonder if part of growing wiser is learning to do the same. Because the phone does not care about how important this discovery is, and it doesn't care how much work needs to be done that still remains, and it doesn't care how badly she wants one more minute or one more hour. Its limitations are real, and ours are too. Yet many of us, we live as though our limits are negotiable, as though exhaustion is a personal failure, or even our negotiation with the fact that each of us will encounter death. As though even with rest, it's something we have to earn or do enough of in order to permit and give ourselves permission to say, that's enough. And here in Matthew, Jesus teaches us something different. Matthew tells us that this is where this passage falls, after feeding the 5,000. I mean, we're just going to feed, 50? And I saw a lot of scurrying around, a lot of planning. And we're talking 50, we're talking 5,000. Jesus sends the disciples ahead in a boat. And he climbs a mountain to pray. Yes, the crowds still had additional needs, and the disciples still have a journey ahead, managing what's in that boat. The world was not fixed. The work was not finished. And yet Jesus knows, I need to step away. Not because he has stopped caring, not because he's given up. He steps away because even love needs replenishment. And there is something profoundly human and profoundly holy about telling the truth about our limits. Perhaps one of the most overlooked details in this story is that before the disciples ever step into the boat, before Peter ever steps out onto the waves, before Jesus ever walks on that water, Jesus steps away entirely from the crowd. Even Jesus needed to get away. Every one of us is somewhere in that boat. Meanwhile, the disciples are in a boat. And if we're honest, most of us have spent enough time being human to know something about being in that boat. Not literal boats, but the boat we find ourselves in when life becomes uncertain. The boat of a difficult diagnosis, the boat of caregiving, the boat of grief, the boat of a strained relationship, the boat of political division and social upheaval, the boat of financial strain, the boat of wondering what comes next. It's like the boat of life. The boat is where the disciples are, and they're rowing into the wind. The waves are battering that boat. Those in that boat are tired and exhausted, and it's dark. And they're being tossed about, and Jesus is nowhere in sight. Then something interesting happens. Matthew gives us a boat full of people, but only one of them gets a name: Peter. And yet I suspect every one of us can find ourselves somewhere in that boat. Occasionally we're the Peter. Occasionally we're the one who wants to take that step out first and be brave and courageous and take that risk. The one willing to give up safety and the certainty of the boat in search of something more. Perhaps you're the disciple unnamed, but you are the first to see the ghost. The ghost of Jesus coming out on that water and says, oh my goodness, there's a ghost. You know, we've all been there when we're like, don't do that. What about this? What about that? I mean, I'm a parent. I sort of live in worst case scenario mode at all times of thinking about this could happen or this could happen. I mean, it's exhausting. Perhaps you're the disciple who sees that ghost and names the ghost, or perhaps you're one of the other unnamed disciples, the ones who don't get any sermons written about them, the one who keeps rowing, the one who keeps showing up, the one keeps doing the ordinary work of getting everyone through the storm. Perhaps you're just simply hanging on. You're in the boat and you're just hanging on. Matthew actually doesn't separate them. The brave from the frightened, from the skeptical, from the exhausted, from the ordinary. Matthew doesn't. He just puts us all in that boat. And it remarkably feels true to life. True to what it means to be church. Every one of us is somewhere in that boat. Stay calm, stay connected, not consumed. Maybe the writer in Matthew is telling the story exactly as they remembered it. Or maybe Matthew is using the language of miracle to tell a deeper truth. Either way, Matthew's claim is not that storms are not real. The wind is real, the waves are real. It's real. The question is whether those things get the final word. Jesus and Peter are not floating above reality. They're standing in the middle of it, connected to it, surrounded by it, but not letting themselves be consumed by it. And perhaps that's the invitation hidden within this strange and beautiful story. Not to escape the waters of this world, not to deny its heaviness, and not to pretend that the chaos is not there, but to stay connected without being consumed by it, to remain fully present to the world while refusing to surrender to it. Our hope, our compassion, our joy, our humanity. The storm is real, and so is the possibility of standing together in it. Stay connected, not consumed. I kept thinking about that jazz quartet Thursday evening. The concentration, the listening, the subtle nods, the trust. Each musician bringing something uniquely their own while remaining deeply attentive to everyone else's needs. And then that break. Not because they didn't care about the music, but because the music itself required it. Even Jesus needed to get away. And every one of us in that boat can identify with those individuals. And here today, the invitation to stay connected to one another, but not be consumed by the chaos that's going on in the sea around us. Connected to the people we love, connected to the communities we serve, connected to a world that is beautiful and heartbreaking and complicated all at once. The storm is real, the waves are real, the wind is real, and so is this community, and so is rest, and so is hope. Perhaps that is the good news. Not that the waters of life disappear, but that we learn to stand in them differently, to tell the truth about our limits, to care for one another along the way, and to stay connected and not consumed. And perhaps that is enough. Enough to keep rowing, enough to keep listening, enough to keep showing up, and enough to keep making music together. Amen.